guys, welcome to Superhero Sitdown episode 18. In today's episode, I'm sitting down with someone who literally creates superheroes, creates and inspires superheroes in the world we live in today. So Soup Squad, give a warm welcome to best-selling author, award-winning entrepreneur, Jairek Robbins.
Hey, nice to see you all. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. Thank you for taking a little bit of life to tune in. I appreciate it.
So thank you for joining us today, Jairek. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, and to have you on this podcast is truly an honor, brother. But you have such an incredible story, and every superhero, every villain has an origin story. So what is your origin story, Jairek, for the people watching?
Sure. So my story, in a way that can help them, it is, pretty simple. It's a story where I grew up and had some great guides in my life. And those guides were able to show me, kind of by shining the light on different paths and allowing me to make decisions and choices to choose which path to walk. I mean, my mom was one of the greatest guides in my lifetime. And she's told me stuff from the beginning of, when you ever wake up and have a great thought at 2 a.m, you're like, oh, that's amazing, I should do that. And she told me something. She says, when a thought hits you, oftentimes it'll hit 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 other people at the exact same moment. The only difference between the person who goes, I had that idea, and the person who starts the next, world-changing business is the one who actually implements the concept. And I remember learning that really young and thinking, wow, I got to learn how to implement. I got to learn how to take some of these ideas and actually do something with them. I'm like, that's really important. And so some of the ideas that showed up early in my life when I was super young were ideas around helping people. I wanted to find a way to make a difference in other people's lives. My first official job, my first job was security at Blockbuster. I was helping the business protect their inventory. But past that, my first actual job was in the nonprofit sector, and I loved it because I got to help people all day. And I spent, years helping and learning how to help and helping people in prison, helping people in the youth. And I really found a lot of fulfillment and joy in that process. At one point, I took a trip around the world, kind of an eye-opening experience for me. I grew up in Southern California where I didn't realize growing up, because it's kind of like a fish inside of the fishbowl. You don't realize you're surrounded by water. Same thing in San Diego. I didn't realize how abundant life is there compared to the rest of Earth. And so I didn't realize that. It was just how I grew up, where I grew up. And so all of a sudden I took a trip around the world, and we got to places like China, and we would see, 4 generations of family living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You're like, wow, that's a lot of people in a little tiny space. I remember getting to South Africa and going to one of the shanty towns, and we took a tour. And when I looked around in the tour, they gave us a tour of someone's house or room. And we walked into the room, and the room was about the size of a college dorm room. So normally there's a bed on one side, a bed on the other, and 2 people sleep in this room in college. And it's kind of tight conditions, but it works. In this circumstance, each bed was a family of 5 living on that one bed. So mom, dad, brother, sister, little sibling, all lived on one single bed. And the room was a tiny room with 2 beds, and there was a 2-family room. So there was 2 families living in that room together. I was like, wow, that's 10 people living in one room on 2 single mattresses. That's incredible. And that blew my mind, because I was like, holy smokes. But the part that blew my mind was next when we walked outside and realized that was the really luxurious way of living there. Then we saw how everyone else lived there. And at the time, it's much better now, but at the time, people were living in these little houses constructed of tin that way back in the day, every Friday would get bulldozed because they didn't want them there. I was like, holy smokes, I couldn't imagine. And I thought that was something. And then we got to, East Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and the cities are great. The cities are just like anywhere else in the world, beautiful, booming, bustling cities. But you get out into the villages, the farming lands, and all of a sudden I met people who lived literally in mud huts that they made by hand. I was like, wow, no electricity, no running water, no toilets. They're living in a hut with a thatch roof that you see in the movies growing up. You're like, wow,
anymore.
I didn't know people still live like that. And you look at them and go, oh my gosh. And you start to realize with no running water, you have to walk a quarter mile to go get a jug of water. You got to carry it home, and then you got to boil it just to have sanitary drinking water. To go to the bathroom, you got to go to a place that they've kind of dug a giant latrine pit, and you got to go to the bathroom, you know, kind of squatting down over a hole that's drilled in the cement. So all this stuff was happening, and I got there and I was like, you know what? It doesn't feel right to go home and go back to college where people are talking about UGG boots and TV shows when people are actually living like this. And I was like, I got to go help. So I went back home, I signed up for a nonprofit organization, and I shipped myself all the way over to live in a little village in Uganda, teaching organic farming and helping as much as I could physically in the villages. And it was probably one of the most life-changing, beautiful, fun, enlightening, magical moments of my life. And the reason being is it taught me how to answer, you know, 3 really important questions. And the questions were figuring out what it takes to feel like in order to be able to answer yes to the thought of, I have enough. I have enough. And it's like looking around, seeing people living in mud huts, no running water, no electricity, no toilets. I mean, when I got home from that trip, I literally stood in the hallway and like flipped the light switch on and off for 20 minutes. My mom was like, are you okay, honey? I'm like, I'm totally fine. This is just absolutely incredible. And then I stood in the bathroom and just stared at the toilet. I'm like, that's one of the greatest inventions of all time. A porcelain toilet, that is amazing. And she's like, you okay? I was like, no, I'm great. I'm just unbelievably blown away by how cool life is. And I didn't know it before I went on this trip. I didn't realize how amazing life was every single day. And the concept for me when I was younger, probably 15 years old, grew up with MTV music videos. And my favorite video was Hypnotized by Biggie Small and Puff Daddy. And I remember watching this video thinking, man, if I could live like them someday, then I'd feel like I really have enough. But then all of a sudden living in a village and being like, dude, if I've got a breath in my lungs and I can see and my heart's working, I have more than enough.
Yeah.
And as a cherry on top, you know, life kind of threw an extra curveball at me while I was there. I got malaria twice. And at one point, the doctor told me I had 6 days left to live. And all of a sudden having enough was about having enough to have another day alive, having a heartbeat, having a breath, being able to see. I was like, man, if my body functions, I have way more than enough. But that was very different. Another question was, you know, I helped kind of sort through this concept of I am enough. What does it mean to be enough? Again, back in the day, watching those music videos, growing up, watching TV, looking at nowadays, we call them influencers.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'd be enough if I could impact millions of people, if I could make a difference all over the world, if I could grow a brand, if I could be an icon, if I could do what these guys do. I mean, Jay or Lewis or Tony or one of these guys, man, I'd really be enough if I could do what they do. And then sitting back and realizing at one point it kind of clicked along the journey, which was if I could reach one person, just one person who really needed it, at the moment they actually needed it, with the message they need, man, that's worth the whole game right there. Just one person. And everything changed. I realized to be enough, didn't even have to reach the one person, but reaching the one person would be a bonus.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I got a letter one time. We wrote a book, and I got a letter one time in the mail, and it said, Dear Mr. Robbins, I'm a soldier, U.S. Air Force. I was deployed, came back, have horrible PTSD. You know, for the last few weeks, I've had my firearm in my mouth every single night wanting to pull the trigger. Someone gave me a copy of your book. I read it, and it reminded me of the reason why I want to keep on living. And I just wanted to write you a note and say thank you for that. I was like, oh, I did it. That's it. We won the game.
Yeah.
We got to someone at the moment they needed us most with the message they needed. Bingo. It landed. Now, that is not why I wrote that book. I wrote that book because at the time it was a reflection of my 10 years of life that I wanted to share with people and inspire people. Because at the time, I didn't feel like I was enough. And I was thinking, if I could just write the book, if I could just give the speech, if I could just build the company, if I could just reach the people, if I could just do all these things, then it would be enough. Mm-hmm. Between the day I wrote it and that moment, I had a lot of learning to do. Life will keep sending you the same message until you either evolve. And if you don't get it, you'll end up revolving, just going in circles, waiting for the moment where you finally understand the lesson life's trying to toss to you. It'll just keep coming back in different forms. And that was a lesson, figuring out what it means to say, I am enough, that kept circling around in my life. And in that moment, I was like, wow, to be enough is nothing more than to show up and give your gifts, knowing that if it can positively touch someone's life, my goodness, you did your work.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, that's more than enough right there. Like, that's doing real goodness in the world.
Yeah.
And there was one more question that I had to kind of sort out, which was, I am enough. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm loved enough. So I have enough, I am enough, I'm loved enough. What does it mean to be loved enough? It's like, for most of us growing up, there's someone in our life we really wanted love from. We really wanted their approval. We really want their connection, whether that's grandma, dad, mom, brother, sister, cousin, aunt, someone in our life. And it's not usually the person you got it from. Because the person who loves you all day, like, you're amazing, you're incredible. You're like, yeah, mom, I know.
Yeah.
But you're like, Dad, come on. What do you think of this? And he's like, it's okay. You're like, oh, come on. It's that one. Or maybe mom, what do you think? Oh, honey, you could always do better. Oh, seriously? Well, I can't even say it's great. But it's that feeling of you just crave their love. You just want it. And I remember having that feeling and being like, oh, man, what does that even mean? And what it really came down to was coming up with a practice. And people like to call this self-love kind of stuff nowadays. It's kind of a poppy term people like. But the God honest truth is, it's sitting down, looking yourself straight in the eyes, and just saying, what do you appreciate about yourself? What do you acknowledge about yourself? Something you did in the last 24 hours that you're proud of. What do you love about yourself? Not egotistically, not pride or ego type of love. I mean genuine, like, wow, I love the fact that I have a big heart and I really care about people. I admire that fact about me. I spend 24 hours a day with myself. I've seen every side of myself, the ugly parts, the beautiful parts, the weird parts, the parts that I'm like, shit, is that really me? I've seen all parts of this human. And the part I really admire is the fact that I really, like, this human really cares. Like, that's cool. That's really cool. I don't see that in every human, but I see it in this human. You know, what else do I see? I see a genuine determination to consistently make progress, consistently do what it takes to move things forward. I admire that about myself. And I was like, wow, can you sit down for 5 minutes and make an actual list every day of things you appreciate, acknowledge, and admire about yourself? Genuinely. Not making it up, not who you're trying to be, but who you really are. You see yourself 24/7. You know what you're really about. Can you actually appreciate and acknowledge who you actually are? And so if you want my backstory, a lot of my life has been spent filtering, sorting, sifting, grand adventures, whitewater rafting down the Nile River, hanging out with silverback gorillas in Rwanda, living in a village in the middle of Africa. Like, I've done some cool shit.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has been internal sorting and sifting to figure out how to answer those three statements. I am enough, I have enough, I'm loved enough.
I mean, Jairek, you're telling us all this, and it's literally like, I feel like I'm listening to a comic book. Like, this is something straight out of the comic books, Jairek. And, you know, with this book, Live It, that, again, this is the book that saved that soldier's life and it's transformed the lives of millions of people. This book, you have it there on your mic. It deals with a concept: learn it, live it, give it. Sometimes people have step 1 and step 3 down, but step 2, that's the gray area where most people don't have, because they don't like live what they preach. Yeah. So with this book revolving around actually living it, living what you say you are, living what, you know, you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. How do people live it? Like, for the people watching this video, what is one thing they could do today to live it?
Sure. So let me give you a framework, or a kind of a structure you could use with this concept.
Yeah.
It's a simple concept. It's a kind of a life philosophy I live by, which is, if you decide what you want in life, no matter what it is, if you want to live like Puff Daddy and Biggie Smalls, my gosh, go do it. If you want to go give and support villages, please do it. If you want to build the next big tech company, or you know, become a scholar, whatever you want to be, incredible mom or dad, whatever you want to do, you got to sit down and say, okay, if that's what I want, if that's what I'm optimizing for, that's what I'm putting my time and effort and thought into, the very first step is you got to learn what it takes to actually get the results you want. And there's really kind of three ways to learn nowadays. Number one, you can go the traditional university route. In order to become a PhD, it takes you about 12 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure this stuff out. Number two, you can try trial and error. My mentor in business, he taught me that trial and error, and you might want to write this down if you're listening, trial and error is the stupidest way to learn anything. And I was like, wait a minute, I like trying new things. I like figuring stuff out. And he's like, well, let me put it this way. If you had an important meeting or an important date to go to, like a real cute person you wanted to go meet, would you want to put together the vehicle through trial and error to be on time to go meet them? I'd be like, no, you're not going to take a pile of metal and bolts and rubber and springs and widgets and sit out front and just try to put a car together and see if you can make it to your date on time. No way. That's pretty stupid. Instead, you go get a car that someone spent hundreds of years perfecting, fine-tuning, figuring out what works, testing it, making it better, making it even safer, making it even stronger, making it run more efficiently. Hundreds of years of people figuring this stuff out. You go use their time and resources that they spent lifetimes perfecting, so you can just jump in, turn it on, drive away. And you don't have to think about it. And what that means is you took decades of someone else's life and experience and you turned it into days that you can immediately learn and apply it. And so that's the third place to learn. 1, standard education. 2, trial and error, which is real dumb. 3, learn from someone who's done it. And they're like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. And the process, what they're doing is they're taking decades of their life and turning it into days of knowledge that you can acquire within days or minutes or hours and immediately put to use the best of what works. They've already weeded out what doesn't. They've already gotten rid of the nonsense that doesn't need to be there, and it shows you what to do. So step 1, learn it. My thought, learn from someone who's done it. So find someone who's done what you want to do, learn it from them. Step 2, live it. This is where you have to apply it. And like you said, people get inspired. They go to a seminar, they read a book, they watch a YouTube video, and they go, oh my gosh, this is great. I wish everyone could know this. So I'm going to take what I just learned. I'm going to make another YouTube video teaching the 5 principles of spiritual success. And it's like, I have no doubt that you have a lot of spirit inside of you. I have no doubt that you want to help people. But by God, go sit in the hill for 25 years and meditate every day and then come back with something. And the truth is, you don't have to sit there for 25 years because someone else has, and they can tell you what they learned. You can go, oh my gosh, that's great. I'm going to take what they taught me from 25 years of trial and error, and I'm going to see if I can evolve that. Not just adding some cool words or trying to change it. I'm going to evolve it by sitting there for 5 more years and seeing if I can discover with what they've learned something else, a new twist, a new addition, a new something to it. But you got to live it. You got to apply it. You got to see what works. And what you're really looking for is what works, but second, what works for you? Because what works for you and works for me is totally different. We got to figure out what works and what works for you. What's the thing that really works in your life, in your situation? Third, we got to figure out how to automate it. Just make it into the daily habit and rituals that we do every day where it just happens like clockwork and we make it happen. Now, from there, the final piece, give it. Once you know what works, once you're getting the results, you're eating, sleeping, breathing, living the results. Like your life, you don't have to say a word. People see how you live and go, wow, I want that. I love that. That's legit. Once you're really doing it, give it. Find a way to pay it forward. Find a way to help other people, do the same so they can catch up and you have more peers. A friend of mine broke this down in a real simple philosophy. It actually helped him make $10 million off of one deal using this simple philosophy. Pretty good deal.
Yeah.
He's the guy. And the other way to think of this is if you look at your peer group, you should have 33% of your peer group in the learn it section. So if you have 10 peers, 3 or 4 of them will be people you're learning from. Meaning you're looking up to, you're admiring, you're learning from, you're spending time with them and you're learning the knowledge, you're learning the skills, you're learning the frameworks and the tools and the structures. 33%, so 3 or 4 of them will be at the exact same level as you. They live it, where you're doing the same stuff. You're both hustling, you're both working, you're both doing stuff, and you're trading, what's working and what's not. You're like, hey, I just found this cool SEO tactic. They're like, oh, great. Here, I found this great way to boost social media. Oh, awesome. Here, I found this great way to, get the blog to go further. Oh, here, you're masterminding. You're sharing information. So you're both growing rapidly together. The third piece is the third group. They might be a step or two behind you. And you turn around and say, hey, let me help you. Let me show you what works and kind of fast track you over all the time and effort I put in to help you catch up. So I have more peers so we can both trade what works and what doesn't. And if you use this little formula, my friend who made $10 million from it, here's how he used it. He sat down and he said, who would I love to learn from? Who would just be amazing to have the opportunity to learn from? And at the time, he was studying the stock market. And he's like, oh my God, I'd love to learn from Jim Cramer, the guy on TV that rings the bell. Buy, 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 sell, 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 that guy. He's like, I'd love to learn from him. And he's like, but if I just write him an email that's like, hey, Jim, I'm a big fan, would love to connect. Can we go out to coffee sometime? My treat. What do you think? Can I pick your brain? There's no chance this guy's going to write back. He's too busy. But he said, what could I do to add genuine value to this guy's life and build a genuine, true relationship? So he sat down, and every day for 30 days, he wrote a list of 10 ways he could add real value to Jim's life. 10 ways I could add value to Jim's life. So he did the homework, and every way he came up with 10 ways he could add value. At the end of 30 days, he looked through the 300 ways he came up with, and he circled the top 10. He picked one and implemented. And what he implemented was 10 blogs I wish you would write about on your blog, Jim. Did his homework. He read every blog on Jim's site. He came up with 10 topics he wished he would write about as a reader so he could learn from Jim what his thoughts are on the topics. Mm-hmm. And he did the SEO headline. He did the research of the core content. He did the research that goes with each piece of the core content. And then he kind of formatted it and said, hey, here's an outline of the 10 blogs I wish you would write. Here's an SEO-friendly title for each. Here's a really strong write-up and the key content I would include in each that I'd love to read from you. And here's the research that goes with it and all the backlinks to where it came from. Anyways, I hope this is helpful, and maybe someday we can connect. He got an email back in 10 minutes that said, would you be willing to write these for our site? He's like, I'd love to. And he got hired by Jim's team to come in and write the 10 articles he wished they would write for their site. Now, while he was there, he looked around. Every day he said, what's 10 ways I can make this place better? What's 10 ways I could improve what they're doing here? Every day wrote a list.
Growing.
After 30 days, he came up with one that worked. There was a software that was missing. He hired the team to build the software. He brought it back. He showed it to Jim, and Jim and his team ended up buying it from him for $10 million.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
That's how he struck up a $10 million deal using Learn It, Live It, Give It. And it's a real simple 10-a-day formula. How can I add value? And every day came up with 10 new ways and picked the best one and implemented. And there's three things he had. He had a mindset, he had a formula, and he took massive action. You get those three things right, you start to see results.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a simple formula, but it goes such a long way. And it's literally the difference between someone who's going to create the life of their dreams or someone who's going to conform and live a life that's less of what they envision their lives being. So
well, in that case, it's the difference between, hey, can I pick your brain? I'd like to take you to coffee with no response, and a $10 million deal.
Exactly. Like, it's insane. It's insane. And Jairek, you've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, when you were in that Ugandan village and contracted malaria and was told you have 5 days to live, I mean, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. And one of the things you preach about is living as if today or tomorrow was your last day on this earth, constructing what your ideal day. And it's an exercise that we do in this book of what is your ideal day? Go out and live that. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, how do you balance living as if tomorrow was your last day on this earth, while also balancing living the marathon that life really is? Because nothing happens, success isn't overnight. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. So how do we balance living as if tomorrow was our last day, while also balancing living the marathon that life really is?
Sure. Well, you got to do both. This is the dance between pleasure and fulfillment. Yeah. Pleasure is the things that feels good right now, but over time fades. Fulfillment is something that could feel good right now or might not, but over time it gets better. And if we look at that ratio, we need to figure out what ratio of your life, thought, effort, energy are you focusing in the pleasure versus fulfillment. Pleasure gives you a spike where all your hormones and chemicals in your body kick off and it feels real good. You're like, ah.
Yeah.
But if you think about what you did pleasure-wise 10 years from now, it doesn't do much for you. Fulfillment might feel good, get a rush. Like a random act of kindness is fulfilling. It feels good now. And if you look back 10 years from now on that one time you did a random act of kindness, you'd feel pretty darn good about your life. Like, I'm proud of myself for doing that. That was cool. And so you want to start choosing more and more things that are fulfilling, things that are good for you, good for others, serve the greater good, and good for the distance of feeling good long-term. You got to choose them. I was taught that's a class 1 experience. It feels good. It's good for you, good for others, and it serves the greater good. Versus a class 2 experience, it feels good. It's not good for you. It's not good for others. It doesn't serve the greater good. And so what we're looking for, how do you balance it, is you create more class 1 experiences. Because if you are living in those class 2 experiences, even though it feels good in the moment, it ain't good for you and it's not good for anyone else. And so it's something that feels good now of like, hey, I'm doing it. And so a big part of that chapter of designing your ideal day is helping you define what's a real class 1 experience that you could do every single day and it only gets better. Versus some people, YOLO, live for now, you only live once. And they go do things that are really pleasurable, but honestly make them feel like shit later. And so it's choosing what are the things that feel good now and feel good later, and making sure you're doing those every single day. And now that you can't get enough of, that you never burn out on, that you never fry yourself or exhaust yourself, or one day wake up and think, what the heck have I been doing? Those you look back and go, wow, this is awesome. I'm really, really proud of myself for doing this. And so you want those class 1 experiences, the way you balance it out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I truly believe it's a balance. So that does make sense. And, the information in this book, like one of the things that I really love about this book, Live It, is that not only do you learn it, but it sets you up for you to live it. Like at the end of each chapter, there's exercises for you to do that set you up to apply the information that you're learning. And this information is so powerful, and it's something that every single human being should truly educate themselves on by immersing themselves in reading a book like this, or watching your content on social media, or just anyone else that has learned it, lived it, and is now giving it. But I feel that this information is so extremely important. I wanted to ask you just your thoughts on why this isn't taught in the education system. Because as we sit here in this little conversation that it's just a confined conversation, I've learned more in this conversation than I have in my entire time in high school. And I'm literally skipping school right now. And it's so worth it because the information that I'm getting is something that's going to last me a lifetime. So why don't you think this type of information is applied and taught in the education system?
So here's the key. It can be. When I went to school, I used to host a group of friends and say, hey, if you guys want to study some stuff that'll make our lives better, let's get together and let's do this. And I think there's lots of people who get upset that, well, how's algebra going to help me later in life? I'm real glad parallelogram season comes every year and I got to pay my parallelogram tax to the IRS. Like, they don't train some of the basic life stuff, but it doesn't mean you can't access it. There are podcasts like this conversation out there in the world. And now it comes down to willpower, not willpower like, okay, fine, I'm willing to do it. I mean, willpower like willing yourself to do it. Like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to study something for an hour after school today. And I'm going to invite 25 of my best friends and we're going to pile in my bedroom here. And we're all going to listen to something that's going to make our life better. And then we're going to challenge each other to apply it. And that's how you start creating that peer group. So it's always available. It's for the people who want it. And 100%. Standard education is there for its own purpose, but life education is always available, and it's available now more than ever before. It is rapidly available. Like, my wife and I are having a baby, and the amount of information women share with each other on what medications are working, what foods are okay, what stroller to use, what car seat to use is phenomenal. Like, the amount of sharing they have is absolutely unbelievable. And I said, imagine what would that be like before the internet and telephone? You'd be like, my great aunt Cheryl, who lives in Nebraska, I think she said this color berry is better than that color berry. And you better hope the game of telephone works real well if you're passing information like that. But nowadays, instantly, we have all these people who can help us learn and grow and experience and expand. And so now it's no longer is the information available? It's readily available. The question is, do you have the willpower? Do you have the willingness? Are you willing yourself to go seek it out every day? Are you willing to put in the time and effort? Are you willing to sit down and focus on it? Are you willing to study it and practice it? Because there's no excuse nowadays. If someone's struggling, it's not because they don't know. Because if you don't know, sit down, use grandfather Google, type in whatever you want to know about and start reading, start listening, start learning, start soaking up and learning what it takes, put it to use and live it. And when you find out what really works and get results, give it, pay it forward, share with other people. 100%. And what happens is the amount of knowledge and the amount of decades of life that are getting condensed in the little tiny micro YouTube videos is amazing. I mean, we just got to take 30 years of my life and condense it into this 30-minute conversation. Hopefully it's useful. Hopefully someone can take 30 years of my experience and put it into 3 minutes of their day, and something's better in their life because of it. Now, they didn't have to sit there for 30 years to contemplate this stuff. They get to kind of sum it up and just take it and use it.
Yeah. So with that being said, Jairek, we don't leave this conversation without inspiring others and telling others and sharing how they can take action today. The same way in this book, you don't end a chapter without being forced to take action. So, Jairek, what is something that the viewers watching this video can do today to become that superhuman version of themselves, to take that next step to get to the next level?
Great question. So there's two things. Number one, if you want to grab a copy of that book, you can go to Amazon, type in Live It Book, Jairek Robbins. It'll come up there. I'd appreciate if you want to grab a copy. It's considered like a workbook. So there's some summary in the chapter. There's some great information. Then there's actual actions to go do. There's work to be done. So you can see actual results by going through it. If you're more of I like to learn through video type person, we have a newer program that's out, and we have some phenomenal co-teachers in this program. Wim Hof is in it. Sean Stevenson, if you're familiar with him, Ben Greenfield, some amazing super performers as far as health, mind, body, and energy. And that program we have on sale. I think it's on sale for like 10 or 20 bucks. If you go to highperformancekw.com, it'll take you over to the program. And, for 10 bucks, it'll give you the framework, again, that took us years and years and years of life to figure out, and show you in quick little 3-minute videos how to immediately apply this stuff to boost your energy, get focused, get healthy, get fit, get strong, become the happiest, healthiest, strongest, most fulfilled version of yourself. So I think those are two things people can do. Also, if you don't want to spend any money whatsoever, you're not in the place to, that's totally fine. Come find me on Instagram. I spit out great content daily. Or go to jrctv.com, which is our YouTube channel, and subscribe there, and you'll catch all that content as well.
So guys, all of the links to everything that Jairek just mentioned will all be in the description of this video. So make sure to check it out. Stop waiting. Now is the time to take the next step to become that next best, most fulfilling version of yourself. So thank you for joining us today, Jairek. You dropped some major truth bombs, a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and I'm grateful and I know the viewers watching this video are grateful to have, been blessed with your wisdom and knowledge in today's video.
Well, thank you so much, sir. And thank you everyone for taking time to tune in and listen and watch this wherever you're seeing it. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I have to jump because I have a coaching client waiting to go chat.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, make sure to check out all the links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.